All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order this morning. Good morning, everyone. It is now time for the special board meeting scheduled for 11 a.m. Madam Secretary, if you could go ahead and read the protocols, please, and take the.
Thank you. Good morning. Pursuant to Western Municipal Water District Resolution 3254, in an effort to protect the public health, prevent the spread of COVID-19, and because state and local officials are implementing measures to promote social distancing, the public may view this board meeting virtually, via Zoom, and in person. This meeting is not being live streamed at wmwd.com, but will be video recorded for on-demand viewing and broadcasting purposes. As stated on the agenda, members of the public who wish to comment on any item on the agenda may make comments in person, virtually via Zoom, or by submitting comments on the district's website. Comments received on the district's website before 4:30 p.m. October 16, 2020 will be made part of the board meeting record. For those participating in the Zoom meeting who will provide public comments, please indicate such by using the raise hand feature and we will call on you individually. For those participating by telephone who wish to provide public comment, you may do so by pressing *6 to unmute yourself and *9 to activate the raise hand feature. If there is more than one caller, you will be identified and called on one at a time. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes in duration. However, the presiding officer reserves the right to reduce the amount of time you are allowed to speak to ensure that all members of the public have an opportunity to provide their comment. I will now take roll call for the meeting. Due to the complexity of conducting this meeting by Zoom and telephonically, I will not be taking roll call for staff members or the public at this time. Director Roden. Here. Director Risby. Here. Director Gardner.
I am present.
Director Torres.
Here.
President Dinstead.
I'm present. Good morning.
Thank you all. President Dinstead, you do have a.
Thank you very much. This time we'll go ahead and move to public comment for any item which is not currently posted on our agenda today. Under the jurisdiction of this agency to be able to consider. Madam Secretary, do we have any public comments for any item that's not posted on our agenda today?
We have no public comments for items not on the agenda.
Thank you very much. Go ahead and move to items to be added to the agenda today. Good morning, Mr. Miller. Anything to add to our agenda today?
Good morning, nothing to add.
Okay. Legal counsel, good morning, sir. Anything to add to our agenda today?
No, Madam President.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to our action agenda for today. And we will call this Mr. Miller. We'll go ahead and let you kick this off. And I think you're going to somebody else anyway. So go ahead.
Thank you very much. So today we're here to discuss creative concepts and adopt a new logo for Western Municipal Water District. The board is well aware that we've been working on this for some time. We're really excited about the options that we're going to present to you. Our consulting team and our staff and our internal focus group has worked really hard on this. And I think that hard work is showing off. I'm going to hand it over to Sarah so she can do the presentation. But before I do that, I just want to help emphasize the importance of what we're doing. When we go out and talk on the federal level and all of our legislative activities, the way that we speak to the legislature and to the administrations is through our logo that we put on letters. And as we're doing our communications with our community, they see our logo. And as I'm working with Solve the Water Crisis, our logo appears on everything we're doing statewide. And so I think that my goal in doing this is that we're a very innovative new organization. We're showing, I think, an amazing amount of leadership in the industry. And I think that this agency really needs a logo that represents that. And so that's what we're pushing for internally. We heard a lot out of our focus group, and Sarah will get into that. I don't want to steal her thunder, but our focus group internally is very passionate about how they think that this agency needs to be represented. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah. She's got a presentation.
Well, thank you, Mr. General Manager. Good morning.
Board President, Vice President, other members of the board. It's a pleasure to be back here again with this item. Before I jump into the agenda this morning, first, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for discussion. So you'll see me kind of jump back and forth between a presenter style and then taking my place to allow as much discussion as possible. So there will be a lot of time for that today. And before I really jumped into the agenda, I wanted to give a little bit of background to really set the stage, since it has been a few months since we've been in front of you with this item. As you might recall, after undergoing a 2-year comprehensive strategic communications planning effort that began in 2018, Western's board did unanimously adopt a strategic communications plan. That plan has directed and guided staff in establishing a new vision and community engagement expectations. And that's been taking place externally and internally district-wide over the last 2.5 years. It certainly has not been a plan that sat on the shelf. That plan did include support of a new visual communication standard for Western by creating a new logo, updating visual communications guidelines, communicating new standards back and forth to the board and employees, and deploying a new logo that is supportive of Western's mission, vision, and values, really setting those priorities forward to our community. During a workshop, the board did review how Western supports this through all of our planning efforts. Years ago, the board moved forward by establishing a mission and vision anchored by values that then created our aspirational document leading us through 2025. That aspirational document, as you might remember, all discussed during our mission, vision, values workshop, was anchored then by strategic priorities that our board recently renewed and adopted with a whole series of work plans that's then supported by our business plans throughout the departments that run the district and help the board advance the strategic priorities that you've set. A majority of our board did discuss that a logo update completed evolution of this planning process and that it's needed. Staff was then directed to bring back additional logo options and to expedite the creative process so that Western could more effectively represent customers at the state and federal levels. There was also some discussion about making a bigger and immediate impact publicly as we confront challenges such as drought, water supply, and other issues that require Western to advance our relationships and presence within the community. So at the direction, staff implemented a process with support from JPW Communications to develop several new logo concepts that could align Western's visual representation with its documented mission, vision, and values, and represent more closely those strategic priorities that we have. So a friendly reminder that over the course of this project, which has been ongoing for about 2.5 years now, we have included significant research. We did competitive audits within the industry and outside the industry. We did strengths, opportunities, threats analysis related to messaging, visuals, logos, values, all of that. That did include focus groups internally and externally. We completed market research historically. We had statistically significant community and stakeholder surveys, and of course, polls and focus groups internally with staff. Additionally, Western staff has conducted several workshops and about 14 presentations to the board of directors to ensure that we did have a process that was reflective of your input, being those that represent directly our customers. So these research results, coupled with staff's input and board of directors input, has directly informed the development of the concepts you see and will see here today that will be presented. We are joined by Jess Cruz-Abalos, Creative Director with JPW Communications. Say hi, Jess, who's online today.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, good, she waved. And we also, she'll be sharing in just a few moments. We also have our project manager, Shannon Sigler, listening in. Where is Shannon? There she is. So with that, if we can go to the next slide, I'm going to recap really what our agenda is today. First, we're going to give you a summary or overview of our last creative workshop together. That overview will also share what the employee focus group, what their input included. If you recall, we had the board workshop first, followed by staff. So this is your chance to hear what the staff said. We're going to be revealing those concepts. That's really what today is about. We'll have discussion around those concepts. And then you're going to hear about the tagline selection and next steps as well. So next slide, please. So to recap, we're going to get into what we heard from the board and staff during our last workshops. And the reason I'm recapping this is because it's really important to kind of just remind us where we started and how we got to where we are today with the concepts, the 3 concepts that you have in your packet. Next slide. So here's what we heard. As I mentioned, we had 2 separate focus groups, one with the board, one with our staff, and these are different from past focus groups that really focus on messaging, value systems, perception, public strategy. We really wanted to hear specifically on visual options that would influence the very design of the logo. So if you recall during our last workshop with the board of directors, we talked about logo style, what we wanted that logo style to convey, color preferences, font choice, and tagline. So in logo style, we reviewed a few different style options that are very standard when it comes to logo design, and the board discussed and agreed that they really wanted to see that negative space style. So that's where you had maybe white space that told a story, maybe popped out. If you remember, we talked about FedEx. We talked about a zoo that had that encompassed. That's what we heard. We wanted that then to convey leadership, service. We wanted to be bold. We heard from you that you wanted to see Western be perceived as modern, forward thinking, but really also relatable. So those 2 things at once. In terms of colors, if you recall, we walked you through color theory. That color, we all have preferences. Sarah's favorite color is hot pink, but really it conveys a feeling and an emotion. And so we tied our values, innovation, leadership, stewardship, reliability to those colors. And that brought out several palette recommendations. And we heard from the board that you preferred to see the logo anchored by hues of blues and greens, and not as excited about dominating colors like orange and purple that express some of our relatability factors there. So we did hear that. In terms of font choice, sans serif, that's that more modern, rounded font choice style you hoped to see in the logo. And then tagline, you wanted to see a tagline that was a bit more direct, descriptive, and connected to the service that Western provides. If you recall, the previously proposed tagline was a little bit more abstract. So we heard that and clear, something a little bit more direct. The good news is, once we held the staff employee focus group, they're fairly aligned with the board feedback. So that gives us a place to work with. There were some differences, so you'll see those represented here on the slide as well. Staff preferred also, they enjoyed that negative space style logo, but they also were drawn to typography with an icon, something that could really stand alone and be recognized maybe without the typeface. The focus group unanimously wanted to convey innovation. They wanted to convey leading, service, professional. This really rang true for employees. They want to be perceived by our customers that they're professional, highly skilled, highly trained. Not just anybody could do this job. They wanted to be seen as high quality, approachable, and also modern, not forward thinking. So it's fairly aligned with in terms of where the board's feedback was as well. Colors similar, they wanted to see saturated colors, bold, with contrast. They did favor purple and orange, but only as an accent color rather than in the primary logo colors, very drawn to the blue teal tones. Also, staff preferred that sans serif font, and they wanted to see a tagline that was encompassing of Western's main services. So again, the takeaway here is feedback from both the board and staff was relatively consistent, which directly informed some of the concepts you're seeing today. Next slide, please. So before we jump into concepts, I know you've had sneak peeks in the packet, and this is really what we're all excited to really discuss. I wanted to give you a few things to think about as we walk through these. First of all, the tagline was selected as a holding place. So we'll be talking about that at the end. You'll hear more about it, but I don't want that to distract in the creative concept. So kind of just keep that in mind. We can easily update or swap as needed across all the concepts. Also, keep in mind as you're reviewing the concept, I've used car analogies before, so I just can't help myself. Just like when you buy a car, you don't go to the Toyota dealership to get the engine, and the Kia dealership to get the shell, and the Honda dealership to get your interior. You really stick with one family, right? So as we review concepts, we're really looking to get one concept drilled down, dialed down, rather than kind of cherry picking from each, because they're strategically built to be in one system. So think about that. Also keep in mind that we heard and had a lot of dialogue, both at the board level and staff, differences between Western Water, Western Municipal Water District, in terms of our, plain language public representation. Want to remind the board that we are not ditching Western's official name, Western Municipal Water District. We are offering concepts that can integrate, that can lead with Western Water, but also have an application with the full name for formal applications or when that might be appropriate. So to be very flexible with the concepts that you're seeing. I want to also share that when you're weighing in, creative concepts are very subjective. We all have favorites. I mentioned mine is pink. But really we're looking to represent and choose how Western is perceived to our customers, what they'll feel, how they'll feel valued. We also have to keep in mind that our staff are reflective of the district-wide input. It was, it included a wide variety of voices, departments, tenure. We also see our board as the representatives of our constituents. We want to hear that feedback to know if we're right on the money here. So lastly, I want to make sure I hit all my points before we drum roll. We really want you to think about how these concepts might relate to our values, right? Think about that color theory, how it's communicating publicly. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jess with JCW Communications, who's going to walk you through each concept, and she'll also indicate when we're going to have opportunity for discussion. So with that, Jess, take it away.
Thanks, Sarah. Just like what Sarah says, the plan is that I'm going to be presenting 3 concepts today, and I will guide you through all of them. And then after I show all 3, we will have a group discussion. So please hold your thoughts until the very end. And then Sarah will share the employee thoughts. And again, we'll have space to discuss as a group. All right. So that's the plan. Let's begin. Next slide, please. Concept 1. This concept was inspired by the words Western Water and is a modern take intended to reflect the organization as a progressive, forward-thinking, and regional leader. The icon is comprised of 2 W's, and a water droplet can be found within the negative space at the center. The tagline is italicized to symbolize forward movement and represents the sharp angles of the icon, with 2 key words in bold to drive home what Western is about: water and service. Next slide, please. If you remember back to our color theory discussion last time we met, this color palette, the color palettes you'll see are selected and inspired by the organization's key values of reliability, innovation, service excellence, public trust, fiscal responsibility, and efficiency. They are calming and friendly, but also bold and strong. And the subtle gradients provides the illusion of fluid movement like water, almost giving the impression of light reflecting off of a pool. The first W in the navy blue represents the organization's quality and bold leadership in both water supply, emerging customer service, and engagement efforts. And the second W, with its 3 color gradient, subtly represents the water cycle and the 3 types of water Western provides: drinking water, recycled water, and wastewater services. This design was also created so that your icon could stand alone out from the crowd on regional, statewide, and federal coalition activities, while also creating a clear, visible mark for the public and your customers to quickly identify. Here we have the full color variation with a horizontal and vertical lockup. And you will also notice the concept's color palette of a primary and accent colors. Accent colors are only used to bring attention to important callouts, and you will see those implemented in the next few slides. Next, please. Here we have the same lockups in color on a dark background and in a black and white, so that you could see how the logo translates in other formats. Next slide. And also the lockups of updated with Western Municipal Water District. All right, let's go to the next slide. And what would concept 1 look like as a letterhead and on an employee polo shirt? And if we go on to the next slide, what it would look like on a truck and on an employee hard hat. Next slide, please. And what would it look like as a website? Here's an example of the accent colors and how they could be implemented as buttons. All right, next slide, please. Moving on to concept 2. Please advance. Concept 2. This logo mark is more playful with its curves inspired by Riverside's landscape of rolling mountains and Western's process of elevating water. The top of the W in the mark is formed by curved hilltops, and the raised water drop symbolizes water being pumped upward. When viewed collectively, these shapes form the letter W for Western. The type is subtly stylized to echo the icon, adding cohesion to the lockup. Next slide, please. The blue gradient keeps with the more traditional water tones, and the color palette is bold yet approachable, which complements Western's values. And again, here we have the horizontal and vertical lockup with the color palette. Next, please. And also the vertical and horizontal lockup on a dark background and in black. You'll notice with this version, the logo on the dark background has solid colors, just to show you an example of how versatile this logo can be. Next slide, please. And here's a lockup with Western Municipal Water District. For these lockups, you'll see a water drop right in the middle of the tagline where it divides it in the center. Again, showing the adaptability of the logo. Next slide. We have the concept 2 as a letterhead and also an employee polo shirt. And if you go to the next slide, you will see what it looks like as a truck and on employee hard hat. And again, on the next slide, what it would look like as a website. Next slide, please. Concept 3. Please advance. This concept is unique because it tells Western's story with the use of negative space through the letter W. Here, the river at the center of the W moving up the mountain represents Western's way of delivering water to their valued customers throughout Riverside County's hillsides. Furthermore, it symbolizes Western's leadership in the water industry throughout the state of California because Western is forging the path and redefining what it is to be a water authority. Next slide, please. The gradient used in the logo is purposeful and provides movement, representing how Western is constantly working to improve its services, water quality, and value in the community. And what's interesting about this logo is that it gives the subtle illusion of a mountain and river being 3D. And again, we have the full color variation of the horizontal and vertical lockup with its color palette. And if you go to the next slide, the same lockup on a dark background and in black and white. Next slide, please. And concept 3 with Western Municipal Water District. Next slide. And what concept 3 would look like again as a letterhead and on employee polo shirt. If you go to the next slide. What it looks like on a truck again and an employee hard hat. And then next slide, please. An example of the homepage. Those are the 3 concepts, and I will hand it back to Sarah to lead our discussion.
Thank you, Jess. And go to the next slide for me. And the next one, we'll just jump right in. So this is really the chance for the board to consider and discuss these options. Again, our goal here is to really hear if we have consensus towards one concept. We do have information for you on the employee focus group feedback. They did go really strongly. So rather than lead with that, we really wanted to have an opportunity for the board to discuss this first together, weigh in. How do these concepts make you feel? Where is your preference? What questions you have, and really just open it up to you to begin discussing these 3 concepts.
Okay. Comments. I have a very specific comment. I'll take a public comment. Just
I love the first one.
First one, okay. How about you? First one?
I actually like.
I like the third one and the first one. I
Yes.
am not attracted to the second.
Okay, so second one I think is dead. And actually looking at it, it kind of reminds me of the Hungry Cat. Just saying. From the
I-
illustration, so
And I will say JPW has been great troopers with our employees, so you cannot harm their feelings on any reactions you might have, like Hungry Cat look.
right, no, I mean, that's kind of what it looks like to me is the illustration. I really like the first one. My comment on the first one, if we want to hear a couple of comments, just for points of discussion, is looking at, trying to go back to your couple of so slide number 8, if we could go back to that for a second.
That's why we don't animate.
Sorry. There we go. I really like the tagline, powered by water, driven by service. I really like that. The comment I would make about this one, because this is absolutely hands down, I love the negative space use. I think we really like that concept when we talked about it, when Laura found out about the heroin. Yeah. I really like the fact of this. However, I would say 2 things about this. One, if we're going to truly focus and generate ourselves as an agency on recycled water, that we probably should put an ombre color of purple in one of those sticks.
The
Okay.
background W.
In the background W, because that's what we orient with is purple and recycled water. And if that's really what we're all about moving towards and going on a goal of conservation and everything, I think that really should be a color that's focused in that. So pick a leg or do last one, I don't really care. I just think purple really needs to be reflected in that for the recycled water and what we've associated with everyone out in public. And then the only other thing I would say is that on the very bottom one where you have the Western Water underneath the logo, I would say to break up because it kind of loses some of its aesthetic. And I would say that maybe on that last leg piece that's independent to maybe cut it in half or do something, because it kind of loses when you lose the color off of that in just the black and white. It has a tendency to blend just a little bit more. So I don't know if I would narrow them in the black and white, if that makes any sense, or thicken something or do something, but just to make it stand out a little bit better and separate it or make the white space in between something, but to pull it out just a little bit more and call it specifically out for the WW. I really like that one. The third one kind of loses a little bit on the river. It almost looks like 2 independent legs kind of standing in between a body type of thing.
You'll hear some of that in the employee
Yeah, that's,
comments that we've got
that's-
kind of
that's-
scheduled there.
let me just kind of,
Back to slide
there we go.
30.
Yeah.
Show all 3.
I will, Director, just to,
And I don't mean to jump on everybody. It was just kind of a thing to look at for consideration because it sounds like majority of everybody.
Can we go back to
likes
slide 30, Spencer?
number 1.
Almost. There
There
we go.
yeah, the other thing that Jess didn't mention that we talked about as a staff is the environmental ethic that Western has is really important. So the background of the green, I think represents our environmental ethic very strongly. We didn't do anything on the purple side for the recycled water, so we can look at how to incorporate that in there too. But I thought the environment To me, the green says environmental issue.
Yeah, no, and I don't have a problem with that at all, because I think that's exactly what the green has meant to me for us being environmental, the blue obviously for the water, but I think putting the purple in there is really
Yeah.
focusing in on what our message has been for
Good, good point.
recycled and conservation.
Well,
And how everybody kind of focused it in, you know, and I'm glad everybody just kind of ixnayed on the two, because, you know, they're just hungry caterpillar to me, so I think it's.
So
Yeah, we could take public comment. Madam Secretary, do we have, any member of the public who wishes to comment online or in the room?
Well, let me ask this. We're gonna go through staff comments, and then we're gonna go through the taglines before we ask the board to.
Oh,
make a
yeah, yeah,
decision.
we
So
should
we're gonna have to
cover that.
through right now, so maybe we should just save till the end for
No.
public comment.
No, yes. and if
So
so,
not to
they
direct the show,
comment on
something else
everything.
might come up, and we usually like to have public comment
Yeah.
once.
Absolutely.
maybe to support discussion, it sounds like so far, all are agreeing concept 2
Done.
is not for discussion. Do we want to consider that and focus on 1 and 3?
Yes.
Absolutely. I'll let director.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much the consensus too, is off the table. So, hungry caterpillar is gone. And I think, discussion on the other one. So why don't you go ahead and continue on with the,
Yeah,
Sure.
President, just while we're on this one and the idea of incorporating
Mhm.
purple for recycled water, I think it's a good idea, and I would put it in on the other short leg of the background W. So you've got a green one, and then a purple one, and then the longer fresh water on the right. It's the biggest piece of our services.
yeah, no, that, whatever works, you know, because I even thought about if they do an ombre color on the long piece and blue tip, yeah, it's.
Just no talk, we're just having a side conversation, you keep going.
Well, I mean, it
There's
transitions
nothing to help the
into,
discussion.
right? So it's kind of like, you know, it starts off with water and we're recycling it. So it's kind of a messaging point of how that works. And I guess if I'm not explaining that correctly, then maybe I try to come up with a
No,
different.
it's fine, we got it.
Okay, so, but if that makes sense to people, you know, because that's really what it's about. We start out with our product and then we move it into recycled. So just food for thought on how that transitions. So, but okay, go ahead with the other comments so we can finish it and then take public comment.
I can share employee feedback, so you can kind of take that into consideration, and there'll be that second opportunity for a full board discussion. Does that work, Director Izzy? I know you just, I clear your hand.
Just with the number 3, the only thing I was missing is it's just one color, right? And with the W, you have different aspects going on, and that's.
I see the gradient. Is there not a gradient?
Yeah, so number
Oh, you're right.
There it is.
Or we don't, we have a lot of.
But
Yeah.
means
like on t-shirts and trucks,
Well, it would be the same thing with the other ones. Wouldn't get the color.
with the.
If you go to the
They're
front
all
picture, it's all white, it's all white or black.
Yeah, no, but you see 3 colors, different colors.
Yeah, but
I think
you're absolutely right. There is a subtle gradient or fade from blue to green in the third. Similar to what you see in 1, although 1 is a little bit more contrasted, if you will.
Yes.
Keep in mind that
that's all white. I don't see the colors.
Keep in mind, the samples we showed are prototypical. So just to give you a sense of how the brand could, or the logo could be implemented. That would be, you know, once we have board consensus and adoption of a logo, we go into the background to make sure it's strong and looks clear, crisp in any application. And that's where you start seeing little tweaks. That's where we build out the guidelines to make sure that it does work on, you know, and again, those prototypes are just to give you the feel of where that logo could go. So if we want to move on, I heard 2 employee feedback, so you can keep that in mind. Go ahead and go to the next.
Question before you go into that.
Sure.
Why, I'm excited to hear it, but why did we not, if we did another focus group internally, Why did we not do one external? Why didn't we go reach out to the public again?
Yep, great question. So that was not part of the project scope that was amended and approved by the board. We really wanted to keep laser focus on the style itself. One thing to keep in mind, we even kept the employee focus group. We made it bigger than the first kind of go around last year. We wanted to make sure it was inclusive, representative of the diversity of our employees, also in tenure, departments, really those that are going to be the ambassadors. But anytime you do things specifically with the creative, when you go out to community at large, you're going to get a third that prefers one, a third that prefers the other, a third that prefers the other, which can put you in a bad position in terms of polarizing. You also want to have the opportunity to bring your customers alongside where we're going as an organization and where you see Western setting strategically. So that was a couple of reasons we didn't go out, but really we wanted to keep the scope narrow given the length of this project. We wanted to keep it laser focused on the creative, allow our employees to infuse that along with our board who's representing our constituents. So as we move on to what the employees said, next slide. Employee reactions and preferences. Next slide. So overall, we had 95% preferred option one, with 19 out of 20 in the group leaning that way. You can see why we held this back a little bit, since it would allow better discussions in the board. When asked about how they felt moving forward at the end of the focus group, you can see words that described what their feedback was: excited, confident, this is Western. We had somebody say emphatically supportive. We want this, number one all the way. We have a few in the focus group that have been along the project from the start. Those employees said this was a much better process. They thought it was more reflective of who Western is, where we're going, and really satisfied with what we came up with relative to the last logo that this board has seen. They felt it was the right option and that they'd be bummed if an alternative was selected. However, during that focus group, we did talk about how our board represents our constituents a little bit differently than our employees connect with them as customers, and that it was equally the board's responsibility to reflect that in the decision. And they're aware that it could look a little different than what we've discussed during that focus group. But that's overall the general sentiment. Like the board so far, immediately option two was taken out of the equation, which you'll see. And a lot of the discussion centered around option one and option three. So next slide. So this is a lot of words on the page. I wanted to try to be as transparent, but also summarizing. This workshop was over an hour and a half long, so we didn't want to bombard you, but overall we centered discussion around these questions. How does the concept make you feel? What would customers think? How would you like to see it improved? And other general reactions. So those are the same questions for all three concepts. For concept one, words like empowered, makes me feel empowered. Business-like, clear, clean, transparent, bold, refreshing, credible, new, yet still connected to the core of who Western is, and so on. A couple of the staff through discussion between 1 and 3, I really like that the use of the W's, that it's still familiar to the logo we have now, really reflecting an evolution rather than a completely new organization. So I thought that was really insightful from the employees. When asked what the customers would think, similar sentiments. I will say the group included operators, technicians, water quality specialists, customer service team members, communicators. It include finance, so really wide representative, folks that engage with customers in a variety of different ways. They felt customers would see this as professional. That was something employees felt really strongly about. They want to be seen as professional, capable, modern, forward thinking, friendly, relatable. That's something that was also pretty important to employees. They want to be connected, relatable, not too businessy. Water service was clear in concept one and positively known in the community, plus easy to identify. Specifically, a couple of our employees who are out in the field, in the trucks more often, they want it so clear that they're Western when they roll up to a customer's house who might be a little bit nervous with somebody coming up to their house. They wanted it to be so easy and have that connection right away. And they felt concept one achieved that. How would you like to see it improved? Like this board is already starting to talk about subtle refinements. they were similar. They loved that it was a strong, edgy font choice, but maybe you could do a little bit more curve, a little bit more round, give that friendly vibe. They also wanted to see a greater transition in that color gradient or that ombre that you're talking about, Director Denstead. Very similar feedback. And maybe just the dark navy slightly, just so it's a little bit more clearly navy and a little less black strong on there. So really good feedback. You could see refinements that could be easily integrated right into that concept. Other reactions, employees thought it had a 3D feeling. In particular, operations teams would feel proud to wear this on uniforms. This was something that was important. Our operations staff that were there have pulled me aside separately and said, hey, the guys just really want to know that this is going to be looking good, that it's going to be visible, that it will translate to their patch, to their hard hat, that it will be clear and legible. And they felt that this achieved that. They immediately felt connected to the service, to the logo it reflected. They loved the negative space water drop, set it apart, and wanted to know how quickly we could roll this out. Next slide. Concept 2 I mentioned did not resonate. It was asked to be cut from discussion immediately rather than giving it the fair shake of the other. So that's what you have there. Next slide. And concept 3. Now, I will say a lot of discussion around this concept. We had one in the group who felt very strongly about this concept. And so we wanted to give a fair dialogue across each. And so in general, that one employee who, after hearing the operators and technicians' perspectives, said, I would be supportive of the other. Eventually, I want to remove my support here because I care so much about what our people in the field feel about this logo. When asked about how it makes you feel, traditional, old, sleepy, classic. However, traditional and classic were spoke to in terms of positive about the logo. Others felt it wasn't as inclusive of the service area in terms of the hills. Yes, we have hills in our landscape, but not everybody sees Riverside and Murrieta as a mountain town and felt that maybe it wasn't as closely connected to our identity. It didn't set us apart, that it's overdone. Lakes, hills, trees are seen a lot in the water industry, and the focus group wanted to be a little bit different than that. Others felt that the W gets lost in practical application, like those prototypes you saw there. They didn't feel like it was as clean and striking, visible, to a customer or other stakeholder. What would your customers think? There were some strong feelings about this in terms of what would customers think, which included confusion. Operators, staff in particular, felt that this looked more like a landscaping company and that they'd have to do a lot to explain who we are, especially driving up or something like that. They thought it was less credible as a regional leader because it didn't seem as new or forward thinking, and that it didn't feel as innovative as maybe the first option did. Again, they'd have to explain what it means. One did like the feel of the river leading up, like we're pioneering, trailblazing, felt that was a strong suit of the concept. So with that, that is the summary of the employee feedback and reaction. So we can open it back up for discussion to the board, again, with the goal of having consensus around one option. Next slide. If you want to hold a discussion, I do have a slide on the tagline if you want to tackle that at the same time. The choice is yours. This is your meeting. Do you want to do a round of discussion or do we want to jump in the tagline?
Let's go ahead because then we'll take public comments. So let's go ahead and do the tagline so that anybody who wants to comment and can comment on everything you see.
Okay. So next slide for me. And we'll skip ahead. So we did survey employees in our executive management team on tagline options. More than a dozen were presented. These dozen were presented in forms of families. So you had kind of a high level tagline with multiple options, variations, different word choices, things like that. So we had 78% all supported one theme or family of taglines, which is what we're showing the board today for discussion. These were also discussed at our focus group, and our focus group preferred option 1 of the 3 below. So these are the family that was selected by the survey, powered by water, driven by service. That was option 1. Option 2, driven by water, leading in service. and option 3, driven by water, powered by service. The percentages you see are the breakdown of those employee-wide survey. And again, the focus group, once they wrestled with it more, leaned towards option 1. I believe it was, 3/4 supported option 1, 1/4 supported option 3. An important takeaway from that focus group was that both groups could live with either. So if you were in camp 1, you were still confident with 3. If you were in camp 3, you were still relatively confident with 1. All employees felt strongly that this was a winner, that Western's business is water, and the core that's moving us forward is our service. Felt really strongly with those 2 words, and really where the discussion was, does power belong with water or does power belong with service? So that's really where the debate was and where you saw kind of the differentiation. But that's the tagline represented today. It's why you say the streamlined version, because of that first survey really whittled it down. It was really clear that this was the strong preference within the district that was surveyed. So with that, we can turn it back to discussion. Spencer, we can go back 2 slides to show those 3 logos side by side. Thank you.
Okay. Any outline comments?
Yeah, that's all we're presenting.
Okay.
I have several comments, if you want to take public.
Okay. Members of the public who want to comment on this.
I have a written or a request for a member of the public, Paul Rodriguez.
Okay.
You can stand.
Can we hear him on the audio?
We'll be able to hear.
The microphone will sit up.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity to greet you today. I am not sharing an opinion. Over the last 3 days, I've been doing in this here.
You speak up, we can't hear you, but.
Certainly. Can you hear me now?
No, louder.
Okay, thank you. My name is Paul Rodriguez. I am campaigning for Western Municipal Water District Division 2. Over the last 3 days, I've been doing some door knocking in various communities. In one community, they are a wholesale customer of Western, and in 2 communities, they are retail customers of Western. During my door knocking process, once I could get folks to open the door and realize that I'm not selling solar or extended warranties, I basically presented them with the 3 concepts and your existing logo, and this is what I shared. I just did a standard routine explanation. This is a routine business process that Western is going through, and they would be looking at some potential redesign of a logo at today's meeting. And I said, just looking at these without being informed ahead of time, do any resonate with you? What I got was that 40% were either indifferent or were comfortable with the existing logo, again, unprompted. 50% did like the alternatives, so the majority of folks like the alternatives, and the remaining 10% like one or more of the alternatives. So I thought that was useful exercise. Throughout that process, I had greeted 120 people personally. 67 chose to give an impression. One person was concerned that they didn't think that this was a worthwhile expense. Everyone else seemed to understand that this was a routine thing that agencies go through from time to time. Again, this is purely anecdotal information. It was interesting, I think, in following Ms. McDonald's presentation. Obviously, these are subjective. Folks react viscerally to something without being prompted. They did like little aspects of each individual one. But what was important was that the feedback that I was getting appears to mirror what you were getting from the employee focus shops. So I just wanted to share that with you, that I have spoken to folks in the out in the field without prompting and just getting general information, and I wanted you to be aware of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Were there any other comments?
I've received no other written comments, and I see no request to speak at this time on Zoom.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and bring it back to the board for comments. Director Torres, you had a comment?
Yes, I have several comments now that we've heard the employees, but I obviously am going to be drawn to number 3 because I am a watershed person. But with everything that you presented, it actually makes a lot of sense. My one concern about number 3 was how it looked on the truck. You can't tell that there's a W once it fades out, so that's obviously very important to the ops group. And also, that is true, we're not a mountain county. So like I said, I'm naturally drawn to number 3 because watersheds is what I do and love. But I have an issue with number 1 in that feels old to me and corporate. It is nice. It's nice. It's a nice concept, don't get me wrong. I don't get excited when I see it in any way. But it sounds like for the staff, the board does, so, which is great. I think, I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to address it since we only get 3 options. But I don't see something exciting there for me. But what matters is, like I mentioned with this third one, is how the ops groups are going to feel when they're driving around, and they should feel proud of that. That's number 1. That's where we go. Those are mostly my comments. I don't know at what point we intend to involve the public, but besides a random poll, at what point we intend to involve the public, but I think we really should. I think we, however that is, if that is Survey Monkey, if that is through canvassing efforts, whatever that the case is, I think the public should be involved. I think we're past the discussion of whether we should do this or not. We're paying for conceptualizing this, but I think their opinion matters a lot. And so however we need to do that, I think that's just mine. And you guys know that's always going to be my comment. So yeah.
Did you have any comments on the tagline?
Taglines are perfect. Taglines are perfect. I like leading generally it's a word that I would pick before everything, but unless we did powered by water leading in service, I think it is actually perfect. Tagline.
Other comments?
To me, I just like the look of number 3, but I think the message of number 1 is better. That's where we ought to go. I think the tagline is great. I wouldn't change anything. But I am convinced that number 1 is the sooner the better.
Okay. Other comments?
I just, number 1, I absolutely love your idea that I'm preliminary. I think that's just right on. So number 1 is my first choice. I love the tagline just the way it is. I like that we're driven by service. That is such a high energy description of how we feel about our service. And we are powered by water. So number 3 is okay. I do like that it has a little bit of softness to it, but when I first looked at it, I saw the river, and my first reaction was, we aren't just about the river. But after hearing the explanation, that it symbolizes other things, the watershed. Okay, so I'm not always the sharpest person on visuals. I did not pick up that was a mountain. And now that I
Staff agreed, they felt confused.
yeah. So, but now, I don't know. Now that I look at it, the way the arms, those look like arms to me, and it's reminding me of the emoji when you go like this, and you're not sure about something. So I love.
That's not what we're trying to convey.
I know, I love the coloring, I like the softness of it, but yeah, I guess confused would be, I wasn't quite sure how to interpret it, whereas the first one, it's like, it's cut and dried, it's got the color in it, it makes a statement to me, it's very clean. I liked how it looked on all the different truck and shirt, all of this. That would be
Okay. Comments? No, you're good, yeah.
Okay, so I really like the thought on the first one the best. It comes out crisp and clean. To Director Torres's point in looking at the trucks, yeah, this loses its complete concept whatsoever. On the truck, it doesn't resonate at all of what.
You can't tell what it is.
You can't tell what it is. And I think that's a really good, I think the comment was from the employees that it reminds you more of a landscape company because we're not involved with the land. We're involved with what we're producing to put on the land, right? The water and not anything else. So, because we're not here to represent a watershed. We're here, you know, that's a SAPA thing, and SAPA can go ahead if they want to take what to do with that, and try to make that happen. But that's not what our primary goal and mission is. And I think we'd really lose the concept. I think we all really like the negative space use for the drop, that it really brings in messaging for us, and it makes it look really creative that way. And maybe Laura will now get to point it out to a couple of other people, so that, you know,
My
hey,
husband
you see
didn't
the
see
water
it.
drop?
You didn't see it right away.
Okay, so,
Did you see the drop?
Right.
I do now.
right?
Yeah, that's, can we make it maybe a little bit? I still don't think
You want to check your drop?
I don't see the drop at all. So I'm.
Well, now you
I
will
know
not
it's
see it.
supposed to go, but it's.
I think it's your water.
And then I was like,
Look at in the dark blue. It comes out really clear in the dark blue.
Like,
So here,
it doesn't look
So-
like a water drop.
right here.
No,
Not-
right,
See it.
right,
I mean,
yeah.
I know where it's supposed to go.
So,
I just,
Negative
I mean,
space is meant to be subtle, right? Not everybody sees it, but
no,
when
and
you do it, it's like,
And that's the fun of it. That's the fun of it, really. And the creativeness about it is to see that negative space, just like the whole FedEx thing with the arrows. I'm not gonna forget that arrow.
yeah,
that Laura
thanks,
did.
thanks Brenda.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
I
So,
mean, and you can have fun with it. too,
And-
right? So totally, put a flag
yeah,
for 4th of July or.
and I
a
think,
rainbow.
I think the comment that I made about the recycled really resonates with everybody with the purple. So figure out how that gets in there and how you blend that in, because that will look really great on the trucks. I mean, as far as the way that message is out and how it looks, because you can really see the water drop there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's clearly the winner when you put it out in a whole, for all the stuff that we've got going on, and you can really see it on the hat too.
You can. I'm wondering too, if you can see it on the truck, because you've sort of got this line in a way across the bottom that
Mhm.
sort of closes. And that might be why it shows up.
Right.
Really well.
and again, I'd encourage on those prototypes, they're just samples,
we-
just so you get a feel.
Right.
We would make sure to
Refine.
refine.
Right.
There'll be a big effort to
Right.
make sure it displays right on all those examples we showed. That's just a
How
quick,
much is the big effort?
Right.
not much.
Okay.
No.
Big efforts in the concepts. I mean, we're out of budget on this, so we don't have.
You're not gonna ask us for more for this. then?
No, and I loved Power by Water, driven by service, because that's really what it's about. We're driven to help the customers. We're driven in our message. We're driven in serving them. And I really like that. That's very clear of where we've moved to, because we want to be the elite, right? The elite workforce providing superior service. And I think that's an absolutely accurate, to the point statement. And I really like that, and I can really stand with that and support it. So, are you wanting to take a formal vote on that?
Yeah, I think what sounds like it'd be appropriate.
Since we go to next step slide so the board can view
Yeah,
that.
I'm not, I don't make the motions, but it sounds to me like it would be a good idea to make a motion to recommend a concept and to ask staff to evaluate working recycled watercolor into the preferred concept.
Yeah, because I think that's really part of our messaging, right? It's part of our mission and what we're doing for recycled, and I think that's important that we figure out. You figure out how you incorporate the purple and how you want to tag it in there. So
Spencer, next slide,
it
please.
needs to be in there.
So right now, we are only taking a vote on a logo, right?
And the tagline.
So the stuff in attachment 4. This like what we're spending afterwards, is that, that's already budgeted for?
That's all, that's budgeted, or if it's not in the current budget, it'll be in a future budget.
Got it.
So it's not a new expenditure.
Okay. Can I just make one more comment?
Yes.
I think two things came up in the conversation in regards to number one. Did I hear someone say the possibility of the navy blue part perhaps being, I'm not saying changing it to light blue, but
More
being
navy
not
blue, light
quite
blue.
quite as harsh because it's almost one of the tones.
Yeah, so when I asked the employee focus group, if you really had to change something about this logo, what would you change? That was one piece of feedback. I've seen it punched up. This could be a little more clearly navy, separated from some felt it looked a little too black. So that could be a refinement for consideration as well, with that purple included into the gradient.
Okay, and then my other, I think Brenda, it was you that marked on, it was on slide 8, showing the logo in just black and white. That if there was some way
To separate so that you don't lose that 3D effect, and I'm not sure what that is. If you make them the white space between a little bit better or something, because it looks great in the color version, but I think there needs to be something that makes it more of a 3D in a
Yeah, so for
black and
consideration,
white.
staff also saw that as well, and we've been looking at this a little while. In that more icon style, we would look at actually dropping the tagline for application of that use and extending the word water. So it's really clear that it's Western water. It would look really good on applications, maybe like a lapel pin or something like that. So that's where we would come in with implementation. It's directing when to use the tagline, when not to use the tagline, depending on the logo variation used. But that's a great suggestion and noted that that's dropping. So make sure to refine that as well.
Okay, perfect. All right. So it sounds like we're ready for vote stuff. We good? Looking for a motion.
Make the motion to approve the new logo with a little variation on the logo one, logo number 1, and or with the same tag. Okay, which is powered by water, driven by service.
With the color change or option, recycled purple.
Yeah, okay, so the variation would be recycled, or we have to do a.
So I'm tracking, if I can help repeat what I think the motion is, we would approve concept 1 with the same tagline and include the following refinements, which would be to integrate purple into the gradient color on the second W. And that's what we said so far. Did you want to also hit on that navy?
Yes.
Yes.
Would you mind amending your motion to add some type of public presentation or welcome?
But
We don't have any money to do that.
no, it's not part of the budget. Okay, and the navy to not be so hail navy and be true navy. How's that? Hail navy red. Did you know that? That's a really deep navy color. Yeah.
The terms of
Hail
navy.
navy is very, very deep.
I'll see if that's your motion.
HA.
that is nice.
Great.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, did you want to go ahead and call the roll, please?
Yeah. Director Roten,
Yes.
Director Rizzi,
Yes.
Director Gardner,
Aye.
Director Torres.
I have to say, after asking several questions and participating, a really, really good job on everything. I just can't endorse something that won't involve public participation.
Director Benstead.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-1 with Director Torres voting no.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else you need to move on this?
That's it. Thank you very much for your attention and your discussion.
Then I just have a question. If we were to get public involvement, what would it take? What is the cost?
Well, we would have to go back what we did before, and we'd have to have a contract for someone to go out and do that survey work?
I didn't think surveying, but it's too late now.
Well, that,
Okay. All right, is there anything else that we need to cover today? We've got the
No.
timelines done and, all right. We'll go ahead and call the meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance today.